Well, hello everybody, and welcome to
Central
our
Coast.
Central Coast Real Estate Connection with April and Miko. Do you know what an escrow is?
Do you know what a good faith deposit is? If you don't, stay tuned and we'll get you informed here real quick.
Yep.
We have Rachel Buchan from Fidelity Title. She's the
Senior
escrow officer.
Yeah. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited
Welcome.
Good to see you.
to explain what escrow is. It's a mystery.
It can be, right?
So you spend, the buyer and the agent spend all this time running around, looking at houses, doing this big stack of paperwork, the contract.
Yep.
And there's like, oh, yay, we got an accepted offer.
So the first thing you're going to do as the agent is forward that to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And ask me to open escrow.
What does that mean?
That means we're ready to look at the property. What we'll do is we'll search the property, verify, confirm the right person is signing to sell it, that has the ownership rights to sign to sell the property. So
Okay.
it's our job to confirm that. At the same time, we're working on doing that research and checking the records through the county for ownership verification. We're going to be in contact with the buyer to get the initial deposit, earnest deposit, which is going to be stated right on the first page of the contract. When the buyer writes the offer, they state right in there what they're going to offer to pay and that they agree to put in a good faith deposit.
And so that's due within 3 business days.
That's your standard, and it comes to us. We cash it. It goes in our trust account.
Now, this is the one time that you can take a personal check.
Yes.
Because you have time for that to clear.
Right.
Okay.
We
Good to
have
know.
to
Yep.
we have to comply with the same good funds requirements as the banks do. So if you go to your bank and they put a hold on your check, it's the same for us. So if we have an escrow that's going to be at least 2 weeks long, we can take a personal check because we have time for it to clear.
Right.
Unlike the funds for closing, usually when the funds come in for closing, we're within a couple of days of closing, which closing is when I'm going to turn around and pay the seller, pay off any mortgages, pay the realtors, pay taxes. And when I'm going to make disbursements, I have to have good funds.
Okay.
So at closing, yes, wire transfers and cashier's checks will be
Right, okay.
required for all closing funds.
Got
But the
it.
initial deposit can be personal check or wire. We also have the ability to do a mobile deposit through our
She just told me
online
about this,
system.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's new.
That's new. So if we have a cell phone number and an email address for the buyer when escrow is opened, we put that in our system. They'll get an email letting them know, alerting that escrow is opened, and it gives them the information if they want to make a mobile deposit.
Wonderful.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
high-tech.
all the technology. I guess makes it a little bit easier here.
It does. It does.
And so once we open escrow and you do your search, and that's it's up to us agents to kind of prepare our clients. You know, once escrow's open, you know, expect to be contacted by the escrow officer.
Yes.
You know, I can't tell you. I had a client recently that says, "Oh, April, I keep getting these emails from this lady," and I said, "That's escrow."
Yeah.
So, and I thought I had mentioned, you know, to prepare for that, but I don't know. Maybe I forgot to tell him. But he was just, "Who is this person?" And I'm going to ignore her. And I said, "No, no, no. This is someone that, you know, is part of this whole transaction for the sale of the property." And anyway,
Is it spam? I get people who call me too. I got this email from you. We have we gather information. So when escrow first opens, our first thing we're going to do is gather information, and we do a lot of that through email. So a lot of times people will call and say, "Is this from you or is it spam?" It's from me, but we also will personally see people as well. Everybody has different comfort levels, so we'll see in person, we'll send papers, we'll do electronic, whichever way works for that particular person.
Now, one of the initial forms that escrow sends out is called a statement of identity. Can you explain that a little bit too? Because I think sometimes some people are a little overwhelmed giving you all of this personal information, but you can tell our viewers why it's so important.
It is personal. We ask for social security numbers, driver's license numbers. So part of our job in researching the property to verify ownership and transfer clear ownership to the new buyer is verifying if there's any liens on the property, secured or unsecured. So if somebody has a child support, IRS lien, franchise tax board, judgment against them personally, and they own a
Yeah.
piece of property, that lien attaches to the property and has to be handled, paid,
Right.
removed, whatever the situation is, before we can close escrow or at close of escrow. So if your name is Mike Smith, John Brown, I mean, it's common. When we run your name in the search records for Santa Barbara County or whatever county the property's in, we might have 200 hits as far as that many people with that name. So
Right.
we can't determine if those liens are that particular person or not. So the statement of information helps us. So then we can put in the system a social security number or a driver's license number or a current property address.
And then you also cross-reference with a past address where they lived previously, correct? Because
Yeah.
that's one of the questions. And have you been married before? That
Right.
name, whatever the case may be.
Because if you had a lien filed against you 10 years ago and you lived at a different address, then we can cross-reference. Oh, look, the name matches, the address matches. And a lot of times the liens won't have a full social security number, just the last four digits. So we have to match these things up to decide, is this lien against our particular party or not?
Got it.
And the sooner we can get the statement of information and do that
Right.
process and determine if we have liens to address, the sooner we can address them, because if not, that is something that can hold us up from closing.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So it is important that we don't ask for every buyer and seller to complete it. It's only the ones when we run names that there's
A
questionable
chance that it
chances.
could be,
Mhm.
yeah.
So it's important as soon as we request it, it gets completed and returned, so we
Okay.
can complete that process. Yeah.
That's great.
So in the package that you prepare for the buyer or the seller, for example, okay, for the buyer, so what it would be included in that package, that initial package to them?
We're kind of the hub. I tell people a lot of the
Yep.
documents we require aren't necessarily for us, but they're for other departments or entities.
Okay.
The buyer gets a form called a preliminary change of ownership report, and that's for the county tax assessor's office. But it's required to be filed at closing. So that's something we send to the buyer, and it's not a very user-friendly form. They ask a lot of strange questions, but it's questions that they need answered so that they can complete the reassessment of the property for the property taxes upon change of ownership. So that one I get a lot of questions on, but because the questions in the document don't make sense unless you really know what the document's for. We also are responsible for preparing and recording the grant deed, changing the ownership to the buyer, and in doing that, we have to find out how the buyer wants their name on the title to the property. So there's, again, another form with a lot of questions asking for marital status, who's going on the title, how do you want your names to show, how do you want to hold title, and
Well, when people come in and talk to you about that, they want kind of your advice, right? And you're kind of stuck because you can't necessarily give advice. So
Right.
you have your little handy dandy sheet that gives them the layout of how to take title, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And we have our website. We have a great website that has a buyer guide and a seller guide, and it has a lot of information about holding title.
Right.
Or I'll refer them to their attorney,
Okay.
because really the way you hold title is something that affects you if
Right.
somebody on the title passes away. So that's what the consideration is. They need to really think about how they want the property ownership transferred or to who if something happened to them.
Right, right.
So it is a serious thing, and again, a lot of questions we're asking. We also will ask them who they're going to have for insurance, for fire hazard or homeowner's insurance on
Right.
the property, because we're going to collect the funds and pay that policy at closing.
And that's something that the buyer needs to do at the beginning,
At the
and that's
beginning now,
where we
right.
come into this the scene and advising them to
All
get the
this
quote
stuff.
now,
Yeah.
not later. Now,
Right. It used to be right at the end that they would get that quote years ago, but now it's
it's
right
right at the-
away
yep.
because of all the changes and
It might take time to get a quote, or they might want to get several quotes, shop a little bit. And if you want to have the ability to do that, you need to do it early on.
ASAP.
So you can
Yes.
talk to several agencies and determine who you want to have your insurance with.
Right.
So we try to ask that question at the beginning as well. And most people don't know the answer, but at least it'll remind them you need to start your research.
right.
So we also, once we finish our title search, we will present a copy of a written report reflecting what we found in the property as far as things that affect the property, if there's easements, if there are covenants, conditions, and restrictions. It discloses all that to them, so we'll provide them with that report. We also distribute, if it hasn't already been distributed, the natural hazard report. So there's several things in the opening package that go to the buyer. Our general provisions, which are going to be our standard practices, kind of gives an outline what we do in escrow, what we don't do, why we're doing the things that we do, what we'll take care of,
Right.
what things we can't take care of. So again, once the contract is accepted, that whole escrow process starts. We communicate with the buyer's lender. We coordinate a lot with the lender because they come to us because, again, same thing, they want us to be able to tell them, when we put your lien against the property, when you loan this money to the buyer, they're going to have clear ownership. You're going to be the first lien, first mortgage on the property. You'll have first rights of payment, and there's nobody else that can make a claim or no other lien. So again, we coordinate with the lender to ensure them of that as well.
Right.
And you help with all the calculations there at the end, just
Yep.
to have it, you know,
All
and
the
then pencil out, or
And then you, and then you let the buyer know how much they need to bring in, and
Yeah, they're not going to. A lot of people don't realize the seller doesn't pay the agent separate. The buyer doesn't pay for their insurance. Doesn't go pay their lender. You don't go pay all these. All the money comes
Right.
into us, and then we'll
you
distribute.
disperse. Yep.
Got it.
Because the lender shouldn't be paid till the transaction closes. The insurance doesn't need to be paid until you're the owner. So a lot of things, everybody wants to know it's going to get paid, but you don't want to pay it yet. So what happens is we close and we pay it, and then we give a statement showing the lender, here we paid those items.
Right.
And same thing with the seller. The seller can see we paid off their mortgage, we paid the realtors for them, any other fees. So
Yes.
all the money is going to come into one spot, and then we'll distribute out when we record the deed transferring ownership.
So then, years ago, literally, the title officer used to go down to the county with the documents, and they would record those documents. That's not the case anymore.
No.
It's all electronic, right? So over the it's close of escrow.
Yeah.
We're of record. What are some of the other terms that we always use?
Confirmation.
Yeah. So it all means
same
the keys are yours,
Yeah.
basically.
The deed has been confirmed. The county has to review every document. The county keeps record of ownership of every piece of property in the county.
Question about that though, when you go to record. So why is it so difficult in Santa Barbara County to not have specials like, and we get this all the time for like San Luis, San Luis Obispo agents. Well, that's why we don't use escrow down in Santa Barbara because we, are.
And it's not our choice.
No, I
Yeah.
understand. But
It's the count. It's the count.
Every county has the rights to run their county recorders how they want. And so every county is different. In Santa Barbara County, we have to have everything in and ready to go and to release. Like, even though it's electronic now, we have to have it in a system and hit the button to release by 7:30 in the morning. So that they still have a technician that comes in and pulls it off of this electronic and reviews it. They have to review every document for completion, clarity. They have several things they look for. And then once they've completed that review, we get notification back. They've accepted the document, recorded the document, and that's confirmation that it was done. That's the one time Monday through Thursday, Santa Barbara County has the ability. They will allow. They won't accept. Now the general public can go in, I think all day till 3:30. But for title companies, they only open recording times.
Wow.
And then on Fridays, or the last day of the month, we have one more opportunity at noon, about 12:30. We're San Luis County, you can record all day, anytime, all day. You put it in the system, release it, and they do that same process up until about 3:30. So it's county by county. So if you go throughout California, you're going to find out every county is different. I want to say Kern, don't quote me, but one of them doesn't do specials at all. And years ago, we didn't do specials at all. We recorded at 8. That was it. And initially, title companies wouldn't record any other time because there's risk. So we have the ability to search the records up until the end of the business day to verify if anything recorded on that property.
Gotcha.
So let's say there's a property that's going to sell, but there's a dispute. Somebody goes to court, gets a judgment, and they can go record it. It can happen. It could be recorded the day before we're going to close.
Okay.
So as a title company, it's our job to verify that since our last search of the records, nothing has been recorded to affect the sale, to stop the sale. That has to be addressed. So we can check the records, like today we can check all the way for everything that recorded today. So if I release something to record tomorrow, I know there's no liens that are going to affect. But when you do a special, you're exposed from 8 o'clock till noon. I don't have access to check to see if something got recorded.
So something could slide in there.
Something could slide in.
Okay.
And we take the risk of that.
Oh, wow.
So years
I
ago,
didn't know
title
that.
I didn't
companies
either.
didn't want to do specials because you're opening yourself up for risk during that time
I see.
that you can't review.
Thank you for explaining
Yeah,
that.
so
because-
because somebody could walk in and record a lien at 10
Or
o'clock.
judgment on, that person, or, I mean, because.
So that's the purpose of the 8 o'clock recording and how it started originally. There's some history because we could do what they call grantor grantee. We could check anything up to the
Right.
end of the day prior, see that nothing recorded, so we know when we record at 8 o'clock, nothing could have recorded before that. And so we can transfer clear ownership.
Wow.
So there's a little risk there to us as a title company if somebody walks into the recorders and records something between 8 and noon.
Got it.
So I want to backtrack a little bit. So one of the forms that is filled out talks about, have you made any improvements on the property? And because I had this happen, and the people checked a roof, and then it was just a nightmare.
If you
Yep.
have
Because of
something
the vendor
done,
got involved or saw that? Or?
No,
if you have any improvements where you hire a contractor, like
Yeah.
a roof, which is a large item,
Right.
the contractor has you sign an agreement with them. And let's say there's a dispute. Let's say you have the outside of the house re-stuccoed and you don't make the final payment because they made a mess. And there's a dispute between the owner and the contractor.
Okay.
Well, the contractor has a contract, and if you don't pay them, they have rights to file a lien on the property. They have a 90-day, the general contractor has a certain time period from when they start the work that they can lien the property.
Right.
And that can take precedence over a transfer. So we need to know as a title company, have you done anything large? And then we may want proof that that stucco was completed, that contractor was paid,
Got it.
or the
So
roofer
that
was paid.
well, and we had proof that it was paid. It was all completed. I think the roofer even sent and then we had to get a bond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to know everything about the situation, but usually, if you have a contractor say I was paid in full and the work was done,
Is that sufficient?
that's sufficient.
Wow.
Okay.
Interesting. Good to know. Good tips just to make sure you have everything ready to document if you're.
And communication. If you, as the agent, know there was a brand new roof put on, if it was 6 months or or older, then usually you're gonna be fine because the contractor would have recorded a lien by now if it didn't get paid from 6 months ago.
Right.
But anything recent
Okay.
could definitely require some more paperwork.
Wow, some good information today, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think you and I have had the most fun with our transactions, huh?
I have to say. I can name a few other agents, but yes, Miko, you've had,
I'm up there in the tops.
well, it's what keeps us going, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Keeps
how
it
long have we been
interesting.
doing this? Yeah. The fun ones are the ones that just,
Yeah, well, nothing's the same. You know what I mean? So this is why
Yeah,
I like doing what I do because it doesn't
Every
get
day.
boring.
Every
know?
day's different, and you
Yeah.
learn something.
Yeah,
You're still learning
oh my
something all the
gosh,
time.
yeah. I mean,
it's so true. And same for us. And I think that's why we find there's so many people in our industry that have been doing it such a long time because it is interesting.
yeah.
Well, you've been a great wealth of information.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
clearing
you
up
so
all the
much.
questions.
Thank you for
Rachel.
having me.
Yeah, thanks for
Appreciate it.
coming by. And if you have any further questions, I can be reached at 805-714-8124.
And my number is 805-878-5056. Thanks for watching.
See you soon. Bye.